Welcome to episode number 121 of The Closing Table with Lawyers Title. I'm your host, Tamera Gaede, and today we're pulling back the curtain on appraisals and helping realtors understand how they can influence the valuation right after this.
Gather round the table, pull up a chair. Real talk, real growth, we're taking you there. From the first handshake to the final key. The wisdom you need to set your business free. It's the closing table with Lawyers Title. Tamera Gaede, she's your main arrival. Yeah, Tamera Gaede makes the vision clear. With Lawyers Title, your best year's here.
Welcome back to episode number 121. Again, I'm your host, Tamera Gaede. I'm really excited about my guest today. I know I say that every time, but I truly am excited about my guest today. So I have Matt Hyatt. He is chief appraiser at True Footage. He's been an appraiser for over 26 years. He is a committee member for NAR Real Property Valuation, Industry Advisory Council member for the Appraisal Foundation, and president of the DFW chapter for American Valuation Society. Did I get that right?
You did.
Nice. So clearly, he knows what he's talking about. So today we're going to talk about what realtors have to know about appraisers, about appraisals this year. So welcome to the show, Matt. I appreciate having you on.
I thank you for having me here.
We've done a lot of stuff together. You're really great at speaking engagements and very, very informative, even down to like the granular level of appraisals. So I've always gotten amazing feedback. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Okay, we're going to dive right into it. So you told me on our pre-podcast discussion that reporting standards are changing this year. So we need to unpack that. And there's like a whole lot of things to talk about. So first of all, let's talk about the deadline. Okay, so explain to everyone the report. We will dive into the standard, what's changing, but when do they become effective?
The absolute mandatory must date is November 2nd of this year. However, we're in what's called the broad production period, where the lenders can order this new appraisal today.
Okay.
Now, the software is not fully there as far as the LOS and the AMS, as far as the lender services, system softwares and the appraisal softwares, but it's getting really close.
Okay, and so you guys are going to be ready by the deadline, November 2nd, you said.
We will be ready. Now, whether the whole industry is ready, we're finding out right now.
Oh, spoiler alert. Okay, so let's talk about what's being changed. Now, I had some the major points of discussion for today. Do we want to start with energy efficient items?
Yeah, we can start there.
Or you can talk about the overview of the reporting standard change. Why don't we start there?
Let's start the overview. So the biggest thing is right now we lived in a world where the appraisal forms are different numbers and there's different types for what type of property. A single family appraisal report goes on a different form than a condo, and a condo goes on a different form than a two-family. Well, that's ends on the new data set. What happens now is we have what they call a dynamic form or report. And as you click applicable fields, the report's going to change. So a condo, a single family, a multifamily are all done on the same report structure now. You'll just hit check boxes, and all of a sudden, if you
it'll
have a condo,
autofill whatever is pertinent to that particular
areas will
property.
come up. So as far as readability, every appraisal
sounds
report
nice.
is going to look the same.
Okay.
Just have different fields and different categories that pop up based on what the property actually is.
And what sparked the reporting standard changes?
I think as far as the general public who utilizes the appraisal report, there was abbreviations that didn't make sense. There were sections that were dated and not applicable to current market standards and expectations. Every appraiser was putting commentary and addenda in different places. So anybody who was utilizing an appraisal report didn't know where to find the answer all the time. That created frustration. That
sounds like the 1 to 4.
Yeah. So
as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, that's the trick 1 to 4.
Yeah. And then you think of the lenders, and the whole reason why we do an appraisal report is to assess the risk on the collateral. And if they can't understand the report and every appraiser can't convey it the same way, there was a need here. And ultimately, the typical borrower, the reader of the appraisal report, the buyer, they didn't know what they were looking at. And now it's a little bit more digestible, less abbreviations, less nomenclature, just real world scenarios.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. It sounds like a good improvement to the form. Okay. So we'll dive into the major segments that have been changed inside of the report. So let's kick it off with energy efficient items. That's solar, people.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of the questions I get all the time. I get, hey, how does solar impact value? And a lot of times it's hard to tell. Right.
Does it impact value in a positive way?
Can, here in DFW, it's still very new. But as we get to a world where we have the data to back it up and we start to see builders utilizing it more and more, it's possible. But
I know my realtor friends don't really enjoy selling houses with solar.
No, but I think a lot of times we oversimplify it to, does it have solar, yes or no? Does it add value? Is it owned? Is it leased? Does it have a UCC lien? What's the size of the system? All that. What's the productivity of the system? And that's where the new report structure is going to start to expand and allow for that kind of reporting, that data collection, which is now going to allow appraisers to start to learn how it really is impacting the market, if it is at all.
Wait a minute. I have a question, sidebar. Is this new report published anywhere? Like if my realtor friends wanted to take a look at it, kind of catch up on what the new reporting standards are, where would they go to be able to find the new report?
The best place to go is the Fannie Mae website. So if you go to Fannie Mae and just Google Fannie Mae UAD 3.6.
UAD.
Unified Appraisal Dataset. UAD 3.6, Fannie Mae, it will take you to a web page that is very much dedicated to all the resources, actually example reports. I think it's Appendix D, I believe, that will have all the samples. So there'll be a sample called SF5, which will show what a typical single-family property looks like on this new report structure.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So and the reports are already out.
As of today, I believe there's about 100 completed assignments on this new appraisal data set. So it's really very early in this game.
Okay.
But we're running out of time. By November 2nd, it's going to come really, really quick.
Ooh, let's not skip over summer just for my personal. Okay, so would it be a better idea to kind of set a calendar reminder and go and revisit this or find the reports in a couple of months?
Yeah, I would say I would expect to see a ramp up sometime September to October because I would expect to see a ramp up September to October because what's going to happen is it's any appraisal report submitted to UCDP by November 2nd. So if an appraisal is in the pipeline, it has to clear this by November 2nd. So anything that gets ordered late September, early October, if a lender orders an appraisal and doesn't get it submitted by November 2nd, they're going to have to order a new appraisal. So you're going to probably start to see.
Who's paying for that?
That's a great question. So I think you're going to start to see a ramp up in utilization of the new report as we get closer. This early summer, probably not ideal because the market should be hopefully at the busiest that it's going to be.
Okay.
But I would expect kind of we get toward the end of August into September, we see a big.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking all of this is because if there's major changes to the reporting standards, my realtor friends need an opportunity to catch up. So, hello, it'd be a really good idea in a couple of months for you to hop on the Fannie Mae website, find the new appraisal report, and educate yourself with a little light reading, I'm sure, on what the changes are, because the data collection is going to fall to the realtor to report to the appraiser from the homeowner, right? So you, as a realtor, you really need to understand what questions you're going to ask, and especially as we work through some of these bigger changes. And in energy efficient items really sparked that idea. So I thought it was important to pivot for just a minute and talk about it, but we're seeing more and more solar panels up north for sure. Yeah. I don't know about in the bubble, but for sure up north. So some of the things that you mentioned that you're going to have to collect is ownership structure, how the system performs, and when it was installed.
Yeah. So the more you can collect from your homeowners about the system, the appraiser is going to have to report it to the lender. And then ideally, we're going to have to capture it for comparable properties. And this is where we get into MLS data integrity, where I can find this out about the subject very easy. Ask the owner. How do I find that out about the comparable sale? I'm going to be calling a real estate agent and asking them.
Okay. So energy efficient items, we walked through that one. Secondary structures was another big one.
Yeah, so we're going to start seeing, when you get into housing affordability and you start parts of the country, you're going to start seeing it get in the DFW more, the utilization of accessory dwelling units or ADUs. You're going to start seeing them more prevalent. Sometimes we call them a quarters here locally. But any kind of secondary structure, the appraiser has to measure it, is going to have to photograph it, and collect data on it almost to the same standard as the main home or improvement. So now all of a sudden what appraiser probably did in the past, measure it really quick, take a picture and move on.
Sure.
Now we're going to have to start getting into what source materials are there, what's the quality of construction there, what's the condition of that improvement, and really kind of break that out separately on the appraisal structure. So again, when you're looking at, and a lot of this falls to comparable properties, the appraiser is going to be calling real estate agents asking, oh, I noticed that had a structure in the back of the lot. What was the size? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? What were the materials? So on and so forth. And agents right now haven't had to really collect that information and put it in MLS. They just notated it was there.
Okay, so we're not talking storage, build small storage buildings, things like that. We're talking about secondary structures like a guest cottage or something.
Yes, but any kind of structure in general, like the new data set really broke down what is a dwelling, what is a structure.
Okay.
So anything that's on the lot, anything that's there is going to have to be reported on.
Wait a minute. Tell them the difference between a dwelling and a structure.
Simply put, the dwelling is the main house, the main improvements, number of dwellings. So a two-family property is going to have two dwellings. Now you're also going to have structures, which can be barns, workshops, accessory dwelling units, quarters,
extra garages, all
detached garage. Okay. Garage is a great one because you have garage as attached is part of the dwelling.
Right.
But a garage detached is going to be a secondary structure. So that kind of gets a little bit confusing where a detached and an attached garage might be reflected a little bit differently.
Okay. Well, thanks for the definition. Okay. So secondary structures, we kind of talked about that. Damages, defects, and deficiencies is another major change you listed.
Yeah, so this not only shows up in one section, there's a main section that will summarize all of the damages, defects, or deficiencies that might be prevalent, but every subsection of the report is going to have that in there. And what happens is, because the report—
There's a reason why.
The report's broken up to unit exterior, unit interior, what external amenities there are. So damages, defects, and deficiencies are something that the lenders are very much concerned about for the risk of the collateral, especially in a market that may or may not be performing the way everybody would hope it would be. So now it's going to be a little bit harder to hide from that, whereas right now it was up to the appraiser, little checkbox, 2 lines of space on the report to fit that all in there, and whether they choose to expand on it was up to them. Now,
well, and appraisers wouldn't want to because then they're I mean, look, the reality is if something gets reported that's a damage or a defect that could affect the risk of the property for the lender, they could kick back on financing, right? And they would make the seller do repairs before the buyer closed on the house.
Yeah.
AKA delay closing.
Yeah, as a lender lending the money, they want to know what their risk is.
And I'm laughing, but I'm also kind of freaking out inside.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things, right? There's the lender risk. There's the litigious nature we live in with, buyers and sellers and what was disclosed, what wasn't disclosed, so on and so forth. So it really comes down to really just wanting have the clearest, transparent process possible. And the appraiser is supposed to be that unbiased third party who's basically the senses for the lender out there in the real world. If they're not fully reporting it, it creates problems. So that's where this has to be.
But it could create problems for the appraiser if they fully report it too. I mean, what is the likelihood the lender is going to stop using them, right? But this takes that out of the equation, right?
With the way I like to explain it is it makes it harder to hide it. So by making it harder to hide, yes, to your point.
I feel bad for
if an appraiser's worried about it being punitive and not getting work, well, I can't lie. It was one thing to be an omission that maybe not be told. It's a whole other thing to blatantly say it's not there when the report's asking for it. And now in this world, I think it's because of that, it's going to be a little bit more accepted.
Well, and from that perspective, I have appreciation for the change, but also buyers need to know what they're buying. Yep. I think it's really important for a buyer to understand the complexities of a property before they walk through the door and own it. So I don't know. There's a lot of arguments probably for and against this little section, but so we'll just move on. Okay, so the overall report aesthetic you said is changing. So it sounds like it's going to make it easier to flow and read for everyone.
Yeah, so every section is going to be very clearly defined. So
Sure.
first thing that they add that I think realtors and buyers and sellers are going to like is the first page of the report is going to be the same every time, and it's going to be a summary page. And it's going to tell you, it's going to show you a front picture of the home, the address, the value, the date of the value, were there any damage or defects that have to be corrected to be qualified for financing. The key property characteristics are right there on page 1, neatly organized the same way every time, regardless of what the property is. And then every other subsection of the report is clearly labeled: unit interior, unit exterior, the site. Every comment that goes to that particular facet of the property is right there in the applicable section. No longer is there going to be a 15-page text addenda at the end of the report that you have to go fishing for the answer. It's going to be right where it's supposed to be every single time. So I think for the layman, the user of an appraisal report, it's going to be a lot cleaner, easy to read.
Okay. I always go straight for how much did you value my property at when I'm looking at something, then I kind of just move on from there.
And right now,
put that on the first page.
And right now, that's on the bottom of the second page.
Yes, it is. You have to go looking for it.
Front and center on the first page.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you. I got my wish. Okay, so kind of pivoting a little bit, there is an issue with the new data collection and alignment with what MLS has that is reported on MLS. So can you expand about the misalignment a little bit and what kind of a challenge this is going to cause? And then we'll talk next about solution, but I love to do challenge solution. So let's first explain the situation.
The issue mainly is going to be the volume of data that the appraiser has to collect is way larger than it's been in the past. So for instance, a sales comparison grid that you're used to seeing where the appraiser illustrates a subject and comparables, right now I believe it's about 33 lines of max data that can be there. It can be as long as 160 now.
160 lines, people.
And
Jesse's eyes just got really big.
And where do we get that information from? The subject, we go collect it. We go to the property, we see it, we measure it, we take the pictures. It's the comparable properties that we're going to be going to MLS to find these answers. And those answers aren't there right now because no one's been asked these questions before. No one's asked for this data before. And now as we call real estate agents for our comp verification, that's going to be the question. Hey, what was the size of the ADU? Well, what is an ADU? You know, what was the solar system? Tell me more about it. Was it owned?
Solar panels.
Solar panels.
Sixth grade science came into play here for just a second.
The water, if it's a waterfront property, how many feet was the frontage? How deep is the water behind the home? Are there riparian rights?
Like, do you know how deep the water is behind the home if you leave it on lake property? I would if I pulled my boat up.
So it's going to create a transitional phase that's going to be really challenging for us to all get on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm involved with my local MLS board. I'm trying to get some of these things added. It's a challenge because no one really understands the need for it yet.
Well, that's where you come in, and that's why you're such an important part of our real estate industry, because you are in front of the people that can affect change. Because of the position you put yourself in, we're all thankful for that because you're clearly an expert, but you're the one that's going to be able to move the needle on this. So do you expect there to be a big delay between when this report comes out and when MLS is able to catch up?
I think so. I mean, you have the problem of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have both been visible, at least on the national level with NAR, to try to communicate this change. But as you get more granular to every local board of realtors, so here in Texas, you know, we deal with MetroTex.
Yeah.
Like we had a seminar out there. I think we had 100 and something agents who came out, and we had the chief appraiser for Fannie Mae come out there and speak.
I know. I missed that event. I really wanted to be at that. I had a conflict. I was really, and if y'all should have gone to that one too.
And we're going to try to do that again and try to get the word out more, try to get more appraisers at some of the MLS meetings to really communicate it. All we can really do now is kind of let real estate agents know this is coming. You're going to care about it later, whether you realize it or not. there are more realtors at an MLS meeting than there are appraisers. So we're going to need some collaboration to get that across the finish line.
Well, you have a great platform for it today.
There you go.
Okay, so again, another good reason why realtors should go in, look at the new report, because as they make changes to MLS, they're going to be required to put in that data. This will help them get ahead a little bit. So that's a great golden nugget. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we fully expect though that MLS will catch up. It's just a matter of when.
Exactly. I think you're going to start to see it again as the demand for the report structure or for this type of report is out there. More appraisers calling. As soon as the phones start ringing, then all of a sudden we're going to solve this problem.
Do you think this is going to cause a delay in completing appraisals?
I would imagine initially, yes, appraisals are going to take a little bit longer. They may or may not get more expensive because, again, the scope of work is
they're
getting
already really expensive now.
I think
I had a lender charge me like $900 for my last appraisal. I make that face because I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me?
There's a different soapbox there for another day for me to jump on.
By the way, this was not a 4,000 square foot property. It was an investment property.
Yeah,
I think he was making money off of it.
But the investment property is another great example of right now in an investment appraisal. There's secondary forms, what's called a 1007 and a 216 that normally have to be added to qualify. Now that's all built into the same report. So it's going to get a little bit easier and a little bit cleaner.
And the report will be customized for that particular property, meaning you're not having to skip over a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't apply.
In theory.
And which will help with the overall report aesthetic and easy of being able to read the information, especially for consumers. That's really important because I don't know, you never know if somebody really understands even what the difference between an appraisal and an inspection report are, right? Because those are very different things.
Yep.
So helping consumers understand what they're reading and making it easier for them, I think, is also really important.
Agree.
Okay, I want to pivot. Is there anything else that we need to cover before we pivot?
The only thing I would kind of point out is if you go back to that Fannie Mae website, you go to U83.6, you want to look at Appendix F1. That's going to show you every possible field that can go on this appraisal report. So if you're looking at getting involved with your MLS and really wanting to get this change across the finish line, start there because Appendix F-1 is going to show you all the possibilities that you might be asked for data.
Okay, so I will get that information from you and we'll post it in the comments when we post Reels.
Yep.
Okay, I want to pivot and for just a second. I want to talk about educating my realtor audience on what do they need to know to get the highest valuation for the property. And there's a lot of things in here that my realtor audience is already going to know. Good to cover them again, right? But also, I think that you had a couple of things that were kind of golden nuggets in here too. So let's talk about let's talk about being present. Should they be present at the appraisal?
Yeah, so I believe an agent's, their job is the fiduciary best interest of their client. So with that being the focus, presence is power. Now again, presence can be different things. Presence could be they're physically meeting me at the property, which I welcome. I love that. It's what I like about real estate. I get to socialize and talk to people.
Sure.
And you want to meet there? Great. Share the information. Presence can be digitally. It can be via email. But I definitely think every agent should take the opportunity to share as much information on the front end before an opinion of value is finalized, because that's the best chance you have to influence where it might go by sharing information.
No, if I was to buy a property, I absolutely want my realtor to be involved with the appraiser. Okay,
Yep,
like you're the one that has the information to deliver to them, right? So we talked about putting together just kind of a presentation or a packet of information for the appraiser. Digitally is fine, but in person is too. Didn't we kind of land at it would be good to show up at the beginning, do a walkthrough of the property, highlight any special features, and then kind of get out of there and let the grumpy old man do his job.
Not every appraiser is like me. Again, if you see me, meet me at the property, we can talk and walk the whole time. I can do two things at once. However, most appraisers are going to want a little bit of autonomy to walk around the property and do their own thing. So I think it's best to show up, greet, share the information, point out any major highlights that you feel are the most influential, and then, like you said, step back, let them do their job. They are professionals. Let them walk around the property. They don't need an escort. They don't need their hand held. You wouldn't want somebody breathing over your shoulder. But yeah, I think presence is power. Be there, greet, be professional, share contact information, make sure that if they need any further information, you are an available
They
resource.
know how to reach out to you. Okay. And you said additionally, there are 2 influential times to affect the appraisal before and after. So do you want to explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, so I mean, you have the before, during, and after. Most appraisers, while they're sitting there typing, are not going to call you and ask you to consult on every line that they're going to fill into the appraisal report that come up with their number. But beforehand, the appraisal packet, most influential. The opinion hasn't been formed. The appraiser's in data collection phase. They're trying to gather information. You showing up, sharing your comps, sharing potential, historical surveys or current surveys, list of improvements and updates or anything that would be relevant to the property. If it's in a planned development that has unique or special features that are available, you want to share that, what that might be, and what you believe are the most competing markets that would compare to this, if not in that immediate same subdivision. But you want to share that on the front end as much as possible. Again, opinion hasn't been formed. Now, the next chance is, because everything is permissible under policy, is the reconsideration of value process. That's going to be after. So the appraisers made their opinion, and the bad joke I've always told before is it's like going to the barbecue and trying to get Uncle Joe to change his opinion on politics or religion. Not always going to go the way you want it to. So you got to be mindful. It's harder. So when you do this reconsideration of value process, it's paramount to be professional. It's paramount to be rooted in fact. It's paramount to have data to support why you're arguing your point of view and not just because I want it to be there.
Sure.
But yeah, that's going to be your next best chance. And again, every lender has their different policies. Fannie Mae has a policy. Freddie Mac has a policy. HUD had a policy. Since rescinded it. Don't want to make that political, but they do different things there. So everything's a little bit nuanced and not uber consistent. So you're going to want to check with your loan officer as far as what that lender policy is on an ROV, but you have the right to do that.
Okay. And you kind of talked about this a little bit, comps, list of improvement, survey, inspection reports, clearly documented MLS list. So, but I want to break those down. Okay. So comps, what are the right comps to provide?
So I think you always want to start with what's most relevant. What does that mean? Proximate is always going to be important. So you want to think of the sales of the closest in the same immediate area, probably relevant. Recency. The more recent, the more indicative of the current market condition. So as we get into a market where values seem like they're going up, down, left, right, depending on what interest rates are doing, how many buyers are out there, what's happening in a geopolitical space, you want to make sure that recency is something we focus on. That doesn't mean you can't go back further in time. Time is the easiest variable to quantify for because we know what the market did historically. So I can tell you if something sold 12 months ago, what the market did from 12 months to today. But you want to be focused on comps that are most comparable on terms of quality, condition, size of the house, size of the lot, age of the house. Those are going to be your kind of primary. All the secondary amenities are things that you figure out as you go through it. You can illustrate a sale to support, having a pool, not having a pool, so on and so forth. But that's how I would, focus in on what comps are the best.
All right. Well, let's drill down a little bit more. If you had your druthers, what is the length of time for the look back, and what do you mean by proximity?
Yeah. So there is no I'll start with proximity. There's no hard and fast rule. So if anyone's ever told you it has to be within a mile, that's nonsense. It's not a real thing. Proximity, again, think about this. If you have to skip by 50 sales within a 5-block radius to go get the one that supports value, you have to have a good reason why you skip those. Are they inferior? Was there something wrong with it? Was it a distressed situation? If you don't have an answer to that question, the ones closest are going to be most relevant. Now, time, again, easiest to quantify. I think the rule for the GSEs is 3 sales ideally within 12 months. Now, I've heard over and over, I can't go past 90 days. Says who?
Okay, that's good. I've heard that a lot.
And you have to think about the market. The market doesn't always move in a linear fashion, meaning that just because something sold 12 months ago, it's not 1% per month, every month, all the time. Sometimes we see seasonality in the market, right? The spring and summer months, we see the market surge. The fall, we see it cool. The winter, we sometimes see it go dormant. Kind of the first time in a while, North Texas kind of went into a seasonal phase here the last year, but we all kind of feel it ramping up maybe a little bit earlier, as we start to kind of see, hopefully interest rates keep coming down in a positive direction.
They went back up.
But yeah, so there's not a hard and fast rule on time and distance, but I always try to say, if you're going to go further back in time, have a reason.
Okay.
Why am I going back to that sale 6 months ago, 9 months ago? Well, there's nothing that sold recent. Great answer.
Yep, great answer.
But if there's 10 sales that sold 2 weeks ago, that are the same size, same age, same whatever, but the one that sold 9 months ago is higher.
Yeah,
well,
that's not the right reason.
It's because the market was better 9 months ago.
Yeah, not the right reason. Okay, so make it make sense when you're pulling comps,
Yes.
okay? And some of these rules that we've heard about don't necessarily, they're not really real rules.
The most common answer you're ever going to hear in real estate evaluation is, it depends.
Depends.
There is no black
That's
and
so
white
exact.
answer all the time, which is what makes it frustrating to work with appraisers a lot of times.
Yeah.
Is, well, I want to know what the answer is. And it depends. What is the market doing today? What would the availability of sales today? What are buyers and sellers agreeing to do today? It varies as the market constantly changes. That's what the appraiser is supposed to be doing, measuring that, feeling that, and reporting that.
Okay, so let's talk about list of improvements. What qualifies?
Yeah, so I think you want to focus on, you don't need a full list of receipts. You don't have to be the sweet lady who gave me a binder of 100 laminated pages of every receipt she ever spent at Home Depot. I appreciate that
That was
gesture.
my dad.
Yeah, but it's, you want to focus on the big ticket kitchens and bathrooms. It's a GSE requirement to let them know if it was updated in the last 1 year, 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 plus. So you want to focus on that. High level, what improvements were done, about what timeline, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. That's usually going to be sufficient. But anything that you feel might be relevant to the marketability of the home, you want to share that with the appraiser.
Okay, survey. I mean, if you have one, it's good to provide one.
Always. You want to make sure we have the accurate site size, because not every local municipality uses a real life plat map. Sometimes they're
I'm
digital.
seeing square footage on my house wrong on the CAD.
Exactly. So if we have a real survey, the appraiser can figure out what the real number is, especially in high value land areas. Width usually has a big impact on value of a lot.
Okay, inspection reports are important to provide as well.
Anything that's out there publicly disclosed that would talk about the improvements, whether they're habitable, safe, sound, anything that illustrates that from another professional is going to be very relevant.
Okay, so we're even talking regular inspection report, general inspection reports, foundation inspections, roof inspections, things like that.
Big thing is the appraiser is just that. They're an appraiser. We value properties. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a roofer. I'm not a plumber. I'm not an electrician. So if you've had somebody qualified look at a roof and say it has effective life, you want to share that. If you've had the foundation looked at and the cracks are cosmetic and they're not structural, you're going to want to share that. The appraiser can then write the report in a manner where it relies on the professional and might save some time and pain later down the process. But if the appraiser doesn't know and all they see is cracks or missing shingles, the appraiser is usually going to recommend inspection or repair.
Okay, then we've got clearly documenting in MLS.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing
That's a good one.
The biggest thing is, I know agents, their responsibility is to sell, right? And with that, we want to make sure that the information in there is credible, accurate, and we're consistent, because again, the appraiser is constantly leaning into MLS. Texas is a non-disclosure state. There is nowhere else to get information aside from the MLS. So we want to make sure the data in there is complete. Don't leave things blank. Don't make it up. Just be clear and transparent.
I see a lot of MLS listings, and there's a lot of information missing. So.
Yep, and a lot of it is just inaccurate, like, including garage space, into the square footage of the home, including a bedroom that might be off of a back house into the main home. Whatever. There's a million different things that can be done as far as situations. The key is, if you don't know, call an appraiser and ask them. We're happy to help you.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about some of the top improvements that bring the most value to the home.
Yeah, so it's always, again, it depends based on every market segment and timing. However, the things that we've seen the most, which are the ones that are the most expensive to put into the home, the kitchens, the bathrooms, the hard surface flooring, the moving of walls and, making the floor plan a little bit more functional to current market desires or trends, usually are the ones that capture the most return on investment.
Yeah, I think, the open floor plan's been so popular for a long time, but I heard they're chopping it up again and putting up walls again and making specific spaces. Jesse's saying yes. Yep. So I don't really want a closed off home, but anyway, that's not the point. Okay, but that's interesting that you said moving walls based on what's current and popular.
And again, that's why
interesting.
The appraiser's out there, right? We're trying. Things are cyclical, right? We've seen things that mid-century modern had its heyday, went away, and then became super niche again.
Now it's antiques. Yay! Yeah.
And then in the late 90s, everything was earth tones. And then, 2020s, all of a sudden everything is gray and white. And
oh my God, I'm so glad that's going away. Black and white and gray and white. And so now it's naturals tones again.
And like you
my
said,
house is back in style.
Open floor
Not that I
plans
care.
were all the rage. And now all of a sudden everybody kind of likes rooms that have a purpose again.
That's interesting to me. I know. I heard one of my clients said that she was working on a project to put the walls back around her dining room and make it a dining room again. And I'm like, interesting. Okay. Okay. So top improvements that bring the most value: kitchens, bathrooms, hard surface flooring, making the walls do whatever the trend is right now. Yep. Okay. For lack of a better way to phrase it. What are the top improvements that don't bring the value you think it will? Yeah. Number one.
Number one, as far as the least return on investment, is going to be a pool.
Pool! I knew it.
Pool's always going to especially in North Texas, it's going to add some form or fashion of value. I very rarely have seen a case where it hasn't. But as far as what the cost of a pool is today,
oh my God, it's
versus
insane.
That return, it's not always where you want it to be. And pools, again, they have mechanicals. They depreciate over time because of that. They don't usually hold their value quite as well.
It's just, man, such a bummer because they cost so much. Okay, give us some other items that don't bring the value you think it will.
One that strikes incredibly close to home for me, because I just recently priced these out, were window coverings. You go and you try to price out blinds or shutters or Roman shades, and they are unbelievably expensive.
Everything's expensive.
Honestly, it's usually kind of, are they there or are they not? And not having window coverings might hurt the marketability of the home. But as far as seeing that adjusted on an appraisal report, usually not. Custom painting and colors and things like that. My taste and your taste may not align. Yeah, they may be similar. They may be different. Again, everything kind of ties to personal preference. And oversimplification of the ones that don't usually add the most value are the ones that are the most personal in taste and preference. Because
that makes sense.
Not everybody likes modern. I'm very traditional in nature, so I like a very clean, traditional looking home. I have friends who love hard, modern, very contemporary type finishes, and it's not my style.
Another one you said was landscaping. I was bound to learn that one.
Yeah, landscaping is one thing. It will always impact marketability of the home. I think if you have two properties, all things equal, the curb appeal of a home absolutely will sell it. As far as seeing it adjusted in an appraisal report, you're not really going to be able to quantify that so much because, again, landscaping...
I can quantify it because I wrote that check.
I did the same. That front flower bed wasn't cheap.
Plants every year because winter kills them. So it was, especially after Snowmageddon, we had so much destruction to landscape, and all of those, all those people with our giant trees and things, the palm trees all didn't make it, but they're not supposed to live here anyway.
But think about that.
That's incredible that it doesn't really add much to the value of the property.
The thing about landscaping mainly is, again, the seasonality of it. It doesn't always look good throughout the entire time of the year. Things don't last, so landscaping is not permanent. You can go put in all the flowers, shrubs, and bushes you want. Doesn't mean they're going to be there a year or two from now. And think about when you're valuing real estate, we're dealing about permanency. Like, what is the actual tangible value? The house isn't going anywhere, barring natural disaster. The floors are not going anywhere. The kitchens and bathrooms aren't going anywhere. Landscaping may or may not make it through a winter season, so therefore it's really hard to put a lot of tangible value onto it.
Yeah, and I see your point about plants. Of course I do, but I'm also talking about the borders that you put in and all the rock you bring in and all the permanent. That stuff is permanent,
yes.
So big boulders and you're built into your landscaping. So the landscaping, mortar work, and all of the stone and all of that kind of stuff is kind of what I was also wondering about.
Like that type of hardscape and stuff like that.
Hardscape. Thank you.
That's going to more factor into the overall quality of the home because you get into it, the ornamentation and the fenestration of the exterior of the home, which is a fancy way of just saying the real things that make a home look higher quality. That's where that's going to get captured. As far as like how good the grass looks, it's not going to look great in December.
Different. Yeah, but the hardscape will bring value.
It will be factored into the overall quality of the home, which will factor into comp selection, which will then factor into value. You won't see a line item for it, but you'll see how the appraiser captured, hopefully grabbing the higher quality sales.
What about things like patio extensions and outdoor entertainment areas?
So those, again, post-COVID, like outdoor living areas became very big. We were all, prisoners in our own home, and we realized we needed to get outside of the four walls, but we couldn't go anywhere else. Outdoor living areas, we definitely see that being a trend that hasn't changed. Extending a patio, things like that, it really comes down to how it's broken out. A lot of that is limited by what the site allows. If you're on a 50 by 100 lot, you don't have so much room to expand these areas. If you're on an acre, you have a lot of opportunity. So again, that would factor in the comp selection, but outdoor living areas would definitely be something that would capture a good amount of value.
Okay. And then, so wait a bit. Let's talk about what impacts eligibility for financing. That's kind of a pivot, but I did want to ask that before we wrap up.
Yeah. So you get into what are called the 4 S's. So the safety, the soundness, the sanitary, and the structural of the home. These are going to be the 4 major things that are going to impact whether a home can qualify for a certain type of mortgage. So safety, missing, if you're on a second story house and there's a door that opens and there's no balcony out there and you can just fall, that's probably not going to qualify.
That would be a problem.
Stairs without handrails, that can be an issue on certain type of loan programs. You get into the sanitary,
Wait a minute, like floating stairs. Some of the high-end super luxury homes that have floating stairs, I don't see a lot of handrails.
It's going to dictate on the type of loan qualifying for. Typically, those type of properties
those people, they're paying cash. Never mind.
So not going to.
Not all of my thoughts are good ones.
But yeah, the big things, again, anything that I always looked at it from the lens of, if I let my kids run around this house, would they kill themselves?
Oh yeah, that's
if
a great
that's
way
the
to
case,
look at
that's
it.
a great way to kind of think through it. Then you get into the sanitary. Is there the presence of that mold-like substance that might be somewhere? No lender is going to want to lend on that. They're assigned to water stains or water intrusion, where again mold would start to make itself known. You want to be mindful of that. You get into the soundness of the home. Are there cracks? Is this structural? Is this cosmetic? Appraiser can't tell. We're not engineers. Again, this is where you're going to want to lean into your network of professionals to see if the home has been inspected and looked at to see if that's a concern.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. Any last minute advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think the biggest thing that I'm passionate about these days is be mindful of the appraisal as far as anything we support, as far as adjustments or market conditions or comp selection. Everything has to be data driven. The appraisal report is becoming less art and more science, and more data science to be specific. So be thinking through that when you're picking your comps, when you're expecting adjustments in appraisal reports. It's getting to a much more data-driven analysis. So you're going to have to kind of partner with other professionals in the market to figure out how to support those numbers or make sure we're picking the right comps that reflect that.
Okay. Good thing to be prepared for your appraisal visit.
Yep.
All right, Matt. Well, that's a wrap on episode number 121. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And I reserve the right to bring you back as a real estate expert and someone I have a lot of respect for. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me and happy to come back anytime.
Okay, that's a wrap on, like I said, episode number 121. Again, I'm your host, Tamera Gaede. If you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. Give me an opportunity to talk to you about your title needs and make it a great day.
Gather round the table.